So let's quickly clear up some of the confusion around the freeze response. I'm Britt, a somatic experiencing practitioner and a nervous system expert. And today I want to talk about the difference between your freeze response, your shutdown response, and your functional freeze response. Now, the dated framework of the nervous system provided that the nervous system was broken up into two coinciding states, kind of like a teeter totter or a seesaw. On one end, you had your parasympathetic rest and digest state, and on the other end, you had your sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze state. But the upgraded science through the polyvagal theory provides that the nervous system actually has three states and can be more so imagined like a ladder with three sections and a hierarchy. At the top of that polyvagal ladder is the ventral state, which is kind of like your rest and digest state, but we call this your safe and connected state. In the middle of that nervous system ladder is your sympathetic fight or flight state. And at the bottom of that ladder is the third state, which is your parasympathetic state of shutdown. So, not quite like freeze, but similar. So, this upgraded science provides that when we talk about our nervous system survival responses, it's not fight, flight, freeze, but actually fight, flight, shutdown. Now, there is a freeze response as well, and there's also something called your functional freeze response. But these are what we call your blended states. These are mixed states, which are exactly what they sound like, a little bit of two different states. I'm going to get into those in one moment. But just to kind of summarize, think of your shutdown state as your state of the turtle shell. Okay, when you go into a state of shutdown at the bottom of the nervous system ladder, you are going into a state of conservation, immobilization, and hibernation. Now, in the turtle shell of shutdown, you feel exhausted, depleted. You have very little energy. This is where fatigue, burnout, and depression live. And in shutdown is where you also have elevated numbing hormones to numb pain and overwhelm. And lastly, you can consider that your shutdown is like the brake pedal of the nervous system. This is your nervous system's way of slowing you down to conserve energy because it feels so incredibly overwhelmed. Now, your freeze response, on the other hand, isn't like hibernation or shutting down in a turtle shell. This is more so a deer in the headlights that is stuck in shock. It is literally frozen in fear, in terror, in panic, and worry. This is one foot on the gas and one foot on the brakes at the same time. Now, this is a blended response where you're experiencing both the sympathetic response of your flight state, which is fear. There's so much shock, there's so much fear. However, it's so overwhelming that you're also experiencing the brake pedal of your shutdown state. Now, the last freeze response is our functional freeze response. And this is what I actually think most of us experience, especially in this modern world that we live in, where we're completely detached from our bodies. Now, functional freeze is more so autopilot. Okay, think of the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. We are functioning day to day. We are going about our daily lives. We are essentially going through the motions, yet we lack complete emotion. So we are numb. There feels like nothingness. We have suppressed emotions. It's hard to express ourselves. It's hard to understand our feelings and to express them. And it's also hard to understand other people's feelings. And functional freeze, again, is another blended response where we have a little bit of that sympathetic energy, that flight response that is mobilizing us. But another part of us is also in that shutdown response where we have the elevated numbing hormones, where we feel numb. And this often happens and comes about in our physiology. We get hardwired to be stuck in these chronic states of functional freeze, normally when we've experienced some type of developmental trauma, where early on in life we learned that emotion and expression of our feeling was not going to be met with support, with love, or with safety. So we learned that it was better to stay small, it was better to not show our emotions, and to just completely detach ourselves from them. So now that I've described the three different kinds of the freeze response, let me know how these land with you. Do any of them feel familiar in your life today? And if they do, let me know in the comments below.